Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Cara Jenkinson, I'm Chair of Muswell Sustainability Group, and this is the second in our talks, part of our Green Open Homes event this autumn, and this is incredibly, I think, our 13th Green Open Home event. We started back in 2013. And I just wanted to quickly say about a visit that I did to one of our new Green Open Homes on Bisham Gardens on Saturday. And I walked through the door and I introduced myself, and the host said, well, the reason I'm doing this project, one of the main reasons is having come along to one of these events, and she also met her architect here as well, Maital, and the project she's doing is a really bold, low-carbon extension to a ground floor flat, and it's lovely to see and nice to know that our events are having an impact. So I'm really hoping that people here this evening might get similarly inspired by our speakers this evening. And I have just realised I've not got my phone, which has got your biographies, but I will try and remember. So first, we're going to hear from Nina Woodcroft, and she is a sustainable designer, having worked in kind of mainstream design and then moved on to sustainable design. And the reason we got in contact with Nina is that I saw a picture of her lovely house in South Tottenham, which she has insulated in cork, which is really interesting. And but she's done so much more for other clients, so we'll be hearing from Nina. Then we will hear from Natalie Black. And Natalie Black has been a friend to Muswell Sustainability Group over the last few years, and has worked in homes in the area, including Muswell Hill Road, which she opened up 3 years ago, and also Coppets Road now, which has been opened up this time. And a very experienced architect, and I think quite a pioneer and trailblazer in some of the materials and approaches being used in the home she's working on. And then finally, we have Joséphine Lecouflé-Vinet, and she is a sustainable designer as well, working with Natalie on a project right now. And she also worked on another of our Green Open Homes in Glaslyn Road in Crouch End. So very much focused on using sustainable, low-carbon, recycled, natural materials. So looking forward to hearing from all of them, and over to you, Nina. And you'll speak from there. Yeah.
Can you hear me? It's working. Well, thanks everyone for coming out on a dark, rainy Monday to listen to us. My name's Nina. My company's called Nina+Co. And I started my career in interior design when I was 20 or 21. And I worked for a company designing hotels and high-end residences internationally. Worked there. I started as an office assistant and just to help on midnight deadlines for presentations, and eventually by the time I left 10 years later I was managing hotel projects in Russia and China and all over the world. But I was very frustrated that nobody seemed to care where anything came from, where anything was going to end up. Sustainability was not mentioned. And so I looked for a job elsewhere. There wasn't anywhere else I wanted to work, so I thought, okay, well, I'll start my own thing. So I started Nina+Co in 2014 with the idea to work on projects with clients who really cared, and try and make a difference and try and make an impact and collaborate with change makers, people who were really interested in change. I would say my breakthrough project was Silo. So Chef Douglas McMaster started Silo restaurant in Brighton as a zero waste restaurant, and it truly is a restaurant with no bin. So they compost leftovers on plates, everything else has a second life as something else. I was called in to design his London restaurant, and I did my utmost to do it in the same vein. It was not a zero waste fit out, I cannot claim that, but we really tried to push materiality. We grew furniture from mycelium. Let me see if that's going to move. No. We grew furniture from mycelium. We used recycled plastic, which is from a brilliant company called Smile. They've grown a lot in the last 10 years. They're in Wales, and they recycle all sorts of post-consumer plastic into beautiful sheet material. We used cork on the floors. We used recycled leather to clad the bar. And we had a potter working upstairs who worked with crushed glass from the wine bottles from service, and we experimented to make them into bowl shapes. He wanted, with the aim to eventually make plates and bowls for service. We first experimented to make wall lights, which you can see on the left there, crushing the granules to different sizes, mixing different colours in, and so the walls of the restaurant have all of those experiments on them. 6 years later, they are now crushing all of that glass and making plates and bowls that they use in service and sell to other restaurants. The other lamp is made from seaweed. An artist who harvests the seaweed from Pembrokeshire and moulds it into beautiful sculptural lighting. All the timber we used was locally sourced ash, and the acoustic insulation on the ceiling is netted sheep's wool. Another commercial project I've worked on is an eyewear store called Monk on Chiltern Street in Marylebone, and they make all their eyewear using bioacetate as opposed to standard acetate. They're a very conscious brand, and they wanted a designer who could kit out their very first store with the same mindset. One of the main materials we used was cornstarch foam. It was inspired by their packaging that they were using to move lenses, delicate, fragile glass lenses around. And I saw it on their Instagram. I just saw this photo, this close-up photo, and I said, "What is that?" And they said, "It's just our packaging. It's made of cornstarch. It's dissolvable. It's compostable." But they said it had the biggest response of any of their Instagram posts that they'd ever posted. And I said, "Yeah, I'm not surprised. It looks like a really interesting material." It's also a very low price point. We were working with an absolute shoestring budget on this store. And so we ran with it. We filled the store. All the shelves have this cornstarch foam on top. It's just some very, very simple, thin aluminium bracket to hold it up, and a ceiling installation, which just has an immersive feeling. So you walk in and it's a tunnel of cornstarch foam with warm lighting, and it hasn't dissolved yet. So they've been there for 5 years. One of the reasons that we used such a low price point, we assumed temporary material, was their initial lease was 6 months with 1 year with a 6-month break clause. So they may have been gone in 6 months, and that gave us all the more reason to design the store in such a way that everything could leave with no trace and also come with them to their next location. We grew more stuff from mycelium, so that's plinth on the left, more recycled plastic, which is just a very useful 100% recycled structural material for building furniture. On the right is a hemp biomaterial. It's corrugated hemp. We use that in the furniture too. And the mirrors, we made sculptural mirror bases. I walked past some roadworks in King's Cross on the way to site one day, and we had this wave going on with the cornstarch and the corrugations on the mycelium and the hemp. And they were drilling up the pavement, drilling out these, with a diamond drill, drilling out these concrete cores and dumping them on the side, and then lifting out big chunks with this wonderful scalloped edge. And I said, what are you doing with all that? Can I have some? So went back with a car, filled the boot with these chunks of concrete, and the diamond drill makes this wonderful polished surface. So they were beautiful sculptural items in themselves that we just didn't need to do anything to. The next project is another retail store. This is called Big. It's a beauty store in Victoria Park Village. The clients, the founders, are Australian, and they wanted to bring all of their favourite beauty brands, brands who really care and are using natural ingredients, using recycled packaging, and making efforts to make their products as low impact environmentally as possible. They wanted a place where someone who loves beauty products and wellness could shop for all of that under one roof. I was surprised that didn't exist already, so it's like a sustainable space NK. And they've really pulled it off. They're such a lovely company, and they've really stuck to their beliefs, and I think what they've shown is that it's possible. So for their store, we worked with salvaged travertine. We used an artist who rescues plasterboard from building sites or cracked pieces from builders' merchants that they can't sell. He crushes it down, and then he rehydrates it and molds it into sculptural furniture. So the legs of that table in the middle are plasterboard, but sculpted into something beautiful. We also worked with cork, so we sculpted blocks of corks. I didn't sculpt any of this, but the makers I worked with sculpted blocks of cork into furniture. The curtains are made of seaweed, algae, and cellulose. And so they're cast, it's a biomaterial that is cast and tinted with, in this instance, reishi mushrooms. Some of the inspiration for the store came from the natural ingredients that are prevalent in natural skincare, like algae, seaweed, mushrooms. On the left you see the cork furniture, and on the right that's another plasterboard piece. We made a treatment room in there. We kept it very simple, all vintage furniture, lime wash on the walls. We did build a glass block wall. I wanted to source reclaimed glass blocks, but they had to be fire rated, and you can't guarantee that with reclaimed. But there is 27% recycled glass content in standard new glass blocks, just for your information. So that's travertine on the left, that's the algae biomaterial in the middle, and that's more mycelium on the right, so some legs of furniture we grew from mycelium again. And I just love those three together, with the natural kind of vein running through all of them. Then I bought a house in Tottenham, and and it was a 1970s building, detached, and it was freezing cold and had old PVC windows that had gaps in them like this. No insulation in the floor, cement tiles, and so that turned into a project as well. I wasn't looking for a project, but the project found me, and so I did a deep retrofit. We ripped out the gas supply entirely, and we've put an air source heat pump in behind that front wall, and done lots of air tightness and insulation work to go hand in hand with that. The cork is 100mm thick. It's a brilliant material. I was drawn to it because of its natural build-up, completely natural build-up. It's lime-based adhesive, 50mm of cork, lime-based adhesive, another 50mm of cork. And the cork, the dark expanded cork, this type of cork, doesn't have any added binder. The cork granules are heated, natural suberin comes out and binds the material together. It's fairly fragile, it's okay for an insulation. Not for everything. The foxes are learning, the foxes like it, they've scratched away at it. You do need to protect it from foxes. Starts off a really dark brown and then silvers quite quickly. I'm told it goes dark again in time, but I'm not sure on what time scales, so we'll see. Inside, we've used lime plaster as far as we could, because it's more natural and it's biodegradable material, and but it's 3 times the price of gypsum, so we have also used gypsum plaster, and we've just sealed everything in with a lovely product called Earthborn Wall Glaze. It's just a transparent water-based glaze, stops it being dusty. Some people have come around and said, "Oh, you've used Tadalact on your walls." I was like, nope, it's just gypsum and a wall glaze, so it's a good Tadalact cheat. The joinery is all locally made with British timbers. So I designed the joinery. I had a wonderful company called Craftworks Productions make it 15 minutes up the road. The island top is a London plane tree that blew down in Soho Square. So there's an excellent company called Fallen and Feld who rescue these trees and timber and provide a wonderful source of local material. I wanted a mid-tone warm timber for the joinery, and Douglas fir was one of the preferred options. But Douglas fir that's commercially available in the UK all comes over from the USA and Canada. I wanted to use local timbers, so I chased the timber, found the timber in Scotland, found someone who could mill it into and make tri-ply material for me, so sort of CLT, three layers, cross-laminated, and used that for the rest of the joinery. We rescued the structural works downstairs. We knocked it, made it open plan downstairs, and that meant that the floorboards upstairs had to come up for a diaphragm to go down, and we saved all of that timber and we reworked it into ceiling cladding at the end of the project, which gives our open plan a bit of kind of division, makes the kind of living dining area feel very cozy. That's the cork on the rear of the house, and that's it. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Nina, thank you very much. Really inspirational. It's just so beautiful. It is, good for the planet and beautiful too. So yeah, and the way you've just done it in your own home as well. So it's lovely. Thank you. We'll take questions for everyone at the end. So we'll move on to Natalie.
hope I sent you the right one, because that's not the right first title. Oh. Okay, good sec. Can I just check that I sent you the right?
No, can do.
Sorry. The first one shouldn't say that. That's a one that we're on. It's that funny back. So,
Yeah.
sorry about that. You would have missed some of the images that I've been putting in this afternoon. Okay, let's go back. So it's not the Spotlight webinar, it's today's event, but that's a project I did in Muswell Hill with Joséphine, and I met Carla, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that one today. If you're considering a retrofit project for yourself, in the brochure that I've put out, there's a link to an assessment which starts to help you to put together some of your thoughts about what you want to do, and gives you an idea of what's involved. So, little plug for myself. So what I'm going to talk about today is my overall route, why I went down this road. It's really nice to see your talk, Nina. I feel like you started around the same time as me, and I feel like we're very much drawn to the same thing. So I really, really enjoyed it. And then why what we do matters, and then I'll talk about a few case studies and give you a few results. Okay, this was me until about 2015. Wasn't really paying attention, and I kind of woke up at that point. I hadn't been working, I'd stopped for a while to have kids, and in 2014 I started my own practice. And from 2015 I decided I wanted to work in a more sustainable way, and that was very much aligned with my values. Ooh. Let's go back one. And that's because, as we all know, and why we're all here, the world's in a bit of trouble, and everything that we do can have an effect. And I saw a video the other day, an Instagram reel, where this guy was looking at the impact of the top 1%. And, you know, we're all pretty fed up with people flying around in jets. But then it showed that people in the top 10%, which were probably all of us, if you're a homeowner, probably in the top 10%, we can have a massive effect as well. And so it becomes quite important how we tackle projects. Not sure where, oops. Sorry, I'm managing this really badly. So yes, we know we've got to do something. And from 2015, I really thought, what can I do as one person? And I came across something called Project Drawdown, and that is a study that was done in America, in California, where they looked at the top 100 ways that people could tackle climate change, the best 100 things that could be done. And bizarrely, the top one, which I don't think anyone would guess, I certainly wouldn't have guessed, is changing fridges, because fridges create incredible amounts of gas, which are really bad for the environment, and it was number one. So I was very surprised by that being number one. But there are a lot to do with the built environment, and that's obviously where all of us can do something about it. So it's good to think about how much buildings emit. A few people came to my talk yesterday, but if you didn't, do you want to hazard a guess as to how much buildings emit in terms of carbon if you think about the whole world's carbon creation in a year? How much do you think that would be? Does anyone want to put their hands up if you didn't come to my talk yesterday? Anyone give a guess?
I think I've read it in your book.
What?
Give it away.
40, yes, that's right, 40%. And that is so a huge amount. And in London, it's actually 68%. And with our homes, it's 35% is generated by our homes, generating 20% of the carbon emissions. And by 2050, we're supposed to reduce our emissions by 68%. So it seems like we're creating a huge amount of carbon, and we've got to drop it a huge amount. But I hope I'll show you some ways you can do that today. So I discovered over the years that I'm a pragmatic optimist. I don't like focusing on the problem. I like focusing on the solution. And in terms of the amount of carbon that's generated by buildings, 28% of it is to do with the powering of them and 11% to do with the materials. So if you reduce the power consumption through the materials that you use, you're doing a great thing. And while I was developing my way of working and the project that I did in Muswell Hill between 2020 and 2023, unknown to me at the time, a group gathered called LETI, and they put together a whole sort of route map as to how to reach much lower carbon impacts through buildings. And they came up with, targets that you might want to meet. And I didn't have any of these targets at the time, and since then I've looked at these targets and tried to work out what they mean. It's quite sort of dense, this information. You've got to change the carbon impact, and everyone's trying to count the amount of carbon they're putting into buildings, and everyone's doing it a slightly different way. And so the whole industry is trying to work at this, and it's so nice to see Nina's project, to see it happening in an area which I hadn't seen before. So why is my role important? I'm having to look around because I prefer not to wear my glasses when I'm doing a talk, because it's just nerve-wracking, and I'm a bit vain. So, so why do materials matter? So if you look at, there's this interesting pyramid that was put together, and it's got a lot of materials that get used in the building industry. And at the top of the pyramid is aluminium. And all the kind of materials that I like to use, and Nina was talking about, are along the bottom of that pyramid. So we've got, don't know if anyone can see them, but there's cork and wood fibre and clay and the use of earth. And if you start to use straw, anything, if you think about the way people used to build, and they very traditional buildings which use straw and mud, the closer you get to that, the better your building is going to be in terms of carbon impact. So that's what this little infographic is about. You can build in very different ways. Some that are very high carbon, which is the way we've been building, particularly in the last 100 years. And you can take it towards the sort of mud and straw version, which is the green one. I think I've reached the yellow so far, but I'm trying to get to the green one. And that's partly because when the materials, if you use natural materials, while they're growing, they're absorbing carbon out of the atmosphere. And if you take them and put them in the building, that carbon then stays in the building. So if you use something like straw, for example, or anything that might end up rotting or being burnt and the carbon goes back into the atmosphere, if you put it into the building, it's going to be staying in that building for the time. And so you've basically made your building a carbon capture. You've captured the carbon and you're storing it in the building. So a few natural materials that I like to use: wood fibre, recycled wood, new wood as well, cork, hemp blocks. So the main thing is to pivot from the way we've been working to date and completely flip that on its head and use materials which are going to have a really positive impact instead of a negative one. So how about all of you? Has anyone got a cold house here? Yeah? How cold does it get? I've been to some that were 12 degrees. That's pretty intense. I find a house, I get too cold if it goes below about 19 myself. I find it quite uncomfortable. Sorry. So on this house, we've got, you're probably all really familiar with this. I don't know how many talks like this you've been to. But we've got one which is losing heat and one which isn't. Anyone want to hazard a guess which way round they are? So I think it's fairly obvious that the one on the right is losing the heat. And so we've got very leaky buildings whilst being quite cold in them. And at the same time, we've got our gas bills and electricity bills going up. So this is the project that I worked on with Joséphine, and in fact, I think the project you mentioned, where they met Maital, I think it was in this project. I think, yeah. And it was partly because she said she didn't have a very big budget, and I said, oh, Maital might want the project. I'm now regretting that. But anyway, so in that project we started, it was basically a derelict house. So it had the lowest possible EPC rating with a 1. And what you can see there is the potential. It wasn't what we did, but that was the original EPC report. And we modelled it with using a passive house planning package to see how much we could reduce the energy consumption. We were trying to get it to NFIT levels, but we weren't able to insulate externally anywhere because the council wouldn't let us, and as a result we couldn't quite get to NFIT levels, but we didn't get that far off. So we started with 650 kilowatt hours per metre square per year, and we dropped it down to, we've now got a recorded 33 kilowatt hours per metre square per year. And once we'd done that, then we modelled how we were going to do the walls, and we used a piece of software called Ubicus, and we plug in all the different materials, and it can tell us how it's going to perform. It gives a sort of spot check of how it will work with moisture and whether there's a risk to the construction. And you can see here with the second one, there's some water in it, and if it starts having too much water in it, then we take it up a level and get a WFI calc, which looks at it over a period of 10 to 15 years, which really looks at protecting making sure that the the build-up is not going to be a high-risk build-up. So in the end, we ended up on that building with a 92% recorded energy efficiency improvement. Starting, I'm not giving too many images from this one because I've got a new one that I want to show you. But we started with, this is the same room, and at the end, an architect went and visited it to see if she should take on the same contractor, and sent me this really lovely message. And it was a particularly cold day and the heating wasn't on yet and it was still really warm. And just to sort of touch back on the RIBA and LETI sort of targets, it took me a while to understand what they meant, but once I figured it out, I found out that on that project we'd managed to meet the 2030 targets in a project that was designed between 2020 and 2023. So we were 7 years in advance, which was very exciting. A little bit of a delay on this. Don't know where I'm pointing it to. Oh. Where am I pointing it to?
The sensor's very near you, so it should pick you up.
Okay.
It's just near the piano.
Okay, so here's a few images of the building. We actually rebuilt the whole back of the building, and we rebuilt it in timber frame, fully filled with wood fibre and with wood fibre on the outside, and then put a brick skin so that it didn't appear that we'd rebuilt it, basically. I didn't have the whole design of this project. I was given when I was brought in, there was already another architect, and they had, I didn't want to sort of compete with them too much, and so I was given the responsibility for the external envelope. So I said, well, can I have the design of the external envelope, which meant I could design the extension, the roof extensions, and everything about how it looked from the outside. But I also got the sculptural forms of the top floor bedrooms and the extension. A few images from inside. And here's a new one that I want to talk about. So this is a project that I've done in Southwark. It's again, we have the trying to meet the targets. This project started, this is the space that we extended into. The client really liked to, one of the clients really liked to leave her study, was by that balcony. She liked to sit on the balcony and watch the sunset in the evening. And so that balcony became quite a sort of focus of the project. And this is the sort of thinking of the view that she had in the evening when she sat outside. And they also happened to have an old spiral stair in their garage that they wanted to make use of. And it had some nice things, like it had these old stable block bricks, because one side of the building had once been a stable, and they had a ghost story about the first time that they'd done it up, and they thought they heard the horse. And so I came up with some designs which really focused on the spiral stair and recreating a space that my client could come out and sit on in the evening. And I gave her both of them, but the one who had the office next to the balcony then had a space to leave her office and sit in the evening, and also an external space as well to do that on a roof terrace. And sort of had quite a lot of fun with the sections and the how that might come about. And initially I was looking to clad it all externally with a timber clad finish. We had a lot of fun with the planners trying to get this through, so it took a while to get it through. And eventually they accepted something where we pushed the extension a bit further back. And initially we didn't ask to put any timber on the outrigger or even insulate the far end of it. And then we went back, once we'd got the main extension through planning, then we went back and asked for that and eventually got that as well. And so we move on to sort of planning drawings and then to drawings where we're starting to actually develop the information for building. Where we start to, all the coloured bits are all the new bits, so you see how it sort of works in terms of retrofitting. We're just adding this whole new layer onto the building. We were insulating internally on the main building and externally at the back, just on the outrigger. And then we had the extension as well. You can see the mezzanine level, which was recreating that space for my client to sit on as she left her office. So I did a whole load of talks about this project in open house, and put out my tableware of materials that were great fun to work with. I'll show them to you as we go through the project, through the slides. But when you start a project, you can start, it's a muddy mess, a project at the beginning. And you can discover all sorts of things that are a challenge. And one which was a particular challenge in this project was the neighbour's land was higher than ours, and we had to deal with a wall which had been painted on one side. And it made me really learn that paints can be one of the biggest challenges. It had been painted on one side, and there was a very delicate relationship with the neighbour who we wanted to keep on side. And initially the contractor had gone round and repointed, and then he put a second coat of paint on without telling me. And so I then had to redesign how we dealt with this wall, because there was no ability for it to be vapour open anymore. It might be vapour open, but we didn't know, and so the suppliers wouldn't guarantee that it was going to work, so I had to be really careful about how we addressed it. So that's a bit more of the floor. That's when we took up the stable block floor, we expected to find a slab underneath, but found that it was all on the earth, so that all had to be redesigned on site as well. I'm not sure whether. So that's a bit more of that, and coming up with the solution. And now I just want to talk about my client's main office space, which is something that can happen on when you're on site. I've been told it's fun to tell a story about some of the adventures on site, so I hope it's entertaining. But anyway, the client at one point sent me a message and said, "What's this green line on the plan?" And I thought, maybe she didn't understand what I'd explained, many months ago when we were putting the project together. So I met up with her, and at the time we were looking at this space, which is her office space, and we'd had to lower the floor because through planning we'd been forced to reduce the height of the extension. But we kept one area higher because we needed to get from a much higher level, and it's made sense to keep one area higher. But I took her into this space, and she couldn't see how it was going to be okay. But I kind of felt like it was, so I wasn't too worried. But I went home and very quickly sent her some sketches to say, it's going to be fine. Have a look at these. So I sent her a few sketches that evening, and then we started building it, and you can start to see how the levels were starting to work out. And then how eventually she had this space, which I always think it's really nice to be able to look down into a space, and so it became part of the route within the house from her office space, and then eventually into the extension. And here you see the muddy mess of starting the extension part of the building. And we didn't put a slab in, we put a suspended timber floor, which meant, again, we were playing a lot with levels. We weren't able to go as low as I would have liked, and we were being pushed down by the planners. So we were coming up and going down at the same time, which made all the levels quite challenging to work out. So that's just working out that we needed to insulate as we came up the brick, the existing outrigger. We were insulating up a metre up above the ground level. So you can see that, and we did that with a bit of insulated plaster. And on this image, this is where it becomes really clear how much we were dropping the extension. You can see the office. I know that people watching streaming won't be able to see this, but you can see the office door, the existing office door, and the new lintel, how much we had to drop in order to get into this space. And so in order to reduce the amount of concrete and steel, we've got no, we haven't got brick and block walls, although at foundation levels we have to do that. And you can see there's a little bit along here, which is also where we've got a retaining wall with the neighbours, which was 500 mil higher. So that's a bit more of that. And now this starts to look at what we built the extension out of. So I'll just go through the layers. Internally, here we've got some OSB, and then there's a few more layers on top of that which end with clay plaster. Then we've got a hemp block. Oh no, there's the OSB, sorry. We've got a hemp block here, got OSB there, 140 mil of timber, and then which is fully filled with hemp insulation, and then solid timber on top. And then this is a bit of compact foam which supports the windows. So you can see that space that we were starting to create, which had the two-storey area where we're able to look up at the terrace space to basically have a bit of drama in the building. And you can start to see here we've got the wood fibre going around the outrigger, which is over here, and then the extension building coming together on that side. And here you can see the hemp insulation going in between the rafters, and then the solid wood fibre on the outside. And then there was the spiral stair. We had a lot of fun with the spiral stair. There'd been, my clients had a really lovely bright yellow sculpture. It's a Superland banana little pottery mock-up of the ones that they have in Liverpool. And they both come from Liverpool. And I thought, basically at one point I said, we should paint the stair yellow because you've got this lovely sculpture and it's got some kind of historical connection with you and the things that you like. So we painted the spiral stair yellow, and then put it into the project. And you can see it going in here. And the image on the right, we were testing it for strength. The structural engineer by this point wasn't totally trusting of the builder, and so he forced his guy to come and run this test. And we were opening the house 2 days after this. So we ran the test, and thank goodness it was fine. And there it is in its finished glory. And the view down for it into their living space. And across it this is the view sort of as you step out of the office and you look across the extension. What we've got there is, I should mention some of the materials. It's completely lined, and the finished material is clay, and all the timber is from Vaston Timber. It's UK grown ash, and we did two colours with the clay, with a rustic finish at the lower level and a smooth finish at the top level, which was very challenging for the builders to put in because they came in two different thicknesses, and then they had to work out how to make them level. And then a few people visiting in September, and all looking up at this. And you can see the spiral stair in the background. And then the clients had a lot of fun with their bathrooms, and it was nice to see. We had lots of fun choosing the materials to go in there. At this point, the roof terrace wasn't quite finished, but you can get to see a little bit of how it is on the outside, and it's clad in also the ash, that the same ash that was internally, came from the same place, but this has been cooked. So it has a much longer lifespan and has a 50-year lifespan as opposed to 30. It's also much easier to do the detailing because it doesn't swell in the wall. It doesn't move in the way that other untreated timbers will in water. And you can see at the bottom, we managed to, in a couple of places, we reused the bricks from the stable block, which we reused along here, and we reused it internally in the garage. A few people looking at the end. And this one, we've got a predicted energy consumption of 31 kilowatt hours per metre square per year. So if Enefit is 25 and Passive House is 15, so it looks like we're going to get a pretty good result, but I'm waiting to see once we've monitored it for a year. And of course, I like to get an image of of the heating, because at the end of the day, design, for me anyway, design and performance are equally important. And this is how I felt when I first came. It's not me, although she looks a bit like me, but this is how I felt in 2015 when I first became climate aware. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to go and stand by Brixton Station and call out to people, and nobody's talking about this. But obviously people have become a lot more aware since. And I've been doing quite a bit to help with that by having tours, making films, talking as much as possible. So this is a challenge I give to people, and I don't think I really need to give it to any of you because I think you're doing it all already. But it's the idea that our solutions are more like a boulder at the top of a hill, and what we all need to do is push at that boulder and call as many people to come and help us push at that boulder and make it roll down the hill, and so that we get mass adoption of what we're trying to do. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalie. And over to our final speaker, Jacqueline.
I don't know if you can hear me properly. Yes. So I'm Joséphine. Sorry, I'm not Jacqueline. I'm Joséphine. That's fine. I'm used to it. So I will go backward. So I'm Joséphine. I'm an interior designer. I'm not specialized in sustainability like Nina is. I've been doing interior design for 10 years now, and I started doing this sustainable job with Natalie 3 years ago, and I really dived into this project because it was very interesting, and I learned a lot about materials, paint. I've never had even thought about paint, you know, the chemicals that are in the paint before. And with this project, I really learned a lot. And then, obviously, we had to go through all of the, you know, the... Sorry, I'm a bit stressed. It's my first talk, and obviously English is not my strength. Well, not my strength, but my language. So you will have to excuse me from time to time. With this project, I had to learn a lot, and then I really enjoyed it, even if it was a challenge. And last year, I was contacted by 2 clients with whom I've done Glassling Road, and we've done an open house on Saturday, and I can recognize some people who were there. And again, we worked on sustainability. Otherwise, most of my my projects are not sustainable. However, I try to do my bit every time I do something. So I will just, I've made some point about sustainability, like easy, sustainable reference when I work. For example, you know, when you do a project, my clients always want to change everything, start with a new kitchen, a new bathroom, and sometimes you don't have to, because you can reuse what's existing if it's in good condition and make it look nice and, you know, useful, and work with the rest of the color scheme and make it cohesive. So you can see on... So this is, it was an arts and craft home, and the people before my client, you know, done the kitchen over the years, so it was all, you know, mismatched cabinets, you know, you've got gloss, red cabinet, shaker style, glaze, and instead of removing everything and putting everything to landfill, we decided to just spray paint it. So we would have some cohesive design, and, you know, make a brand new kitchen out of an old one. Here it's the same idea. My client bought this flat, and the kitchen was maybe 10 years old, but very well maintained, in a very good condition. And instead of just chucking away all the cabinets, we just decided to paint it in a nice color. We just changed the color, the worktop, and then we've got a brand new kitchen for just a fraction of the price. And also, you know, nothing went to landfill. Here, the kitchen was very old-fashioned. However, we didn't respray it. We totally changed it. However, we put all the cabinets and the worktop on Gumtree or Freebie. And because my clients were not living on site at that moment, people were able to come and grab some cabinets and reuse all the worktop. Because you can have the worktop recut by a stonemason, and then, you know, it's being reused, and that's a nice way to just, you know, make your... And here we had this massive piece of glass, which was just, we don't really know what it was for actually, but instead of removing it, which would cost quite a lot of money, we decided to put wallpaper on it. So again, it's a nice way to reuse what you have for a fraction of the price. I know Nina grew the furniture, I don't. So when I source furniture, I try to think again the provenance of the furniture and how you can reuse or even buy locally or second hand. So on the, in this project, we had a sofa and one armchair, and my client wanted to, they really loved the sofa, but it was old and a bit tatty, and they only had one armchair and they wanted to. So they thought, you know, let's get rid of everything and start afresh. And I know the design was very interesting. So what I've done was sourcing a second armchair from eBay, which matched their armchair, and we reupholstered their sofa with a linen. So again, it's trying to keep what's existing instead of, you know, changing all the time and buying from new. In this image, these pieces were bought in an antique shop, So again, they were, they came from different houses, and it's also a nice way to bring some nice atmosphere to any home when you have like vintage furniture. And lastly, this one is an heirloom. So it comes from the great aunt of my client, and they didn't really know where to put it, and actually we made sure it fitted within the scheme of their new dining room. When obviously with a retrofit it's a bit easier because the architects work on the positioning of the new windows and how to bring the light in. But when you can't do that, we have to think of the efficiency, the energy efficiency through lightings, for example. So nowadays it's much easier with LEDs, but it's quite interesting to think, to chat with the architect myself when I do the projects to know where the windows or the skylights are fitted, to just work on the positioning of the new lights. So this one here is quite interesting because all the skylights actually bring the light, and my clients barely need any light during the day because it's always, a light naturally. Here the shower is lightened by the window. Obviously it's on the 7th floor, so there's no one seeing. And we've got this opaque film which reflects the light, so it really helps having a nice shower room. Here the positioning of the skylight make the back of the extension much lighter and much better than if we didn't have anything. So again, that's thanks to the architects, and they know what they do. And I was mentioning paint earlier. So when you do a sustainable project, you have to think of the VOC in paints. So as I mentioned, I've never heard of VOC before, which are the volatile organic compounds, which are the chemicals in the paint. Some paints got plastic, so you kind of breathe chemicals throughout the day. With those brands like Lakeland or even Grafenstone, unfortunately they closed. Which is a shame because they were one of the best manufacturers in the UK. But with Lakeland, for example, you've got solvent-free paint. They are natural pigment using organic materials, toxin-free, obviously, and they are made in the UK. So it's it really helps. I wanted to show you those images because even if they are paints from Lakeland or Grafenstone, you can see that all the colors come from different brands. So you are not limited to a palette of colors. You can explore different colors from different brands. Then you ask them to mix the colors you want. For example, this is a project I've done with Natalie. And this is another one, but see, the color scheme is very different, but it comes from the same paint brand. Natalie mentioned it earlier, the insulation is quite important, and here I wanted to show you this photo because that shows the width of the wall for the exterior wall, how much insulation they put to really insulate this back extension. And here, so we used to have a flooring here, and the first floor was boiling hot in summer because it's a south-facing room, and the bottom room didn't have any window, so it was, on the contrary, very cold and gloomy. And so the architect decided to remove the flooring, so all the light comes through during the day and brings some warmth to the room and really goes to this room. So it goes through, and you can see the warmth and the light. It's it's a really good example of good architecture and how, you know, retrofit works nicely with this kind of houses. Obviously, good sustainable design really helps your mental health through colors and, you know, furniture you source and, you know, the ambience you create. So I think color is very important, but also the paint you use, you know, because you've got the paint I mentioned earlier, let the wall breathe. So obviously there's no build-up of moisture and obviously no mold, because if you use this kind of silicone-based paint, you will see at some point all the top of your ceiling will get dark, like moldy. So this is quite important on your health. I just wanted to show that you don't have to have brand new furniture every time you do a project. You know, bringing your old furniture is still fine. You know, we can always make it work within the new design. And finally, this is a headboard my client has done. That's something I suggested, and as a side project, he really had fun putting his own stamp on this new home. Sustainable and economic benefit. When I do a bathroom, I try to avoid having bathtub, because obviously a bath consumes around 80 to 100 liters of water, and a shower, it's half of it. So I try to convince my clients to go away from bath. I know sometimes they've got kids and it's not possible, but there's always ways. So when we can't have showers and they really want to stick with bath, I ask them to fit some water-saving taps and shower head. So the quality of the appliances you buy also is very important. You can go, you know, I think it's quite important from start to have a chat with your designer about your budget, so that we make sure we've got enough money for bathroom and kitchens. So you don't have to change your appliances after 5 years or 6 years, because, you know, they all get old and moldy. And here, my client had a leak in their shower, so we had to redo the whole shower space in the bathroom. And because it was only 2 meters by 1 meter, I didn't see the point of removing all the wall tiles. The wall tiles from the opposite side of the bathroom. So I created, I redid the shower space with a very bold tile, which I reused on one side to create a link between one side and the other. And I just wanted them to appreciate that you don't have to change the whole bathroom when you have a leak. You know, you can be clever and think a bit out of the box. And finally, biophilic. I think it's something we tend to forget in our home. Plants, the good effect plants have on the health, you know. It improves the air quality, and also it brings a bit of joy for everyone. I've never used plants before COVID. Don't ask me why. I used to style my projects with fake plants, and I feel very bad about it now. So COVID made something to me. Maybe it was the only positive aspect of COVID, but I started adding plants here and there every time I do a project, and yeah, that's the beauty of sustainable design.
Some questions. If you want to just sit up there, I think there's a mic there which hopefully will work. So, any questions? Yes.
Can you use the mic, please?
Thank you. Hi, I have a question for Nina. So about cork in floor and in the cladding, is it suitable for high traffic on the floor? And for the cladding, was it, is it suitable for water? Does it absorb water, etc.? And then another question is for the cornstarch ceiling. Do you need to meet any fire rating?
Okay, I'll start with the cork. The flooring, is it hard wearing? There are loads of different types of cork floor. In my house I've got 4mm glue down cork, and I put the most natural finish on. We did it ourselves, so we got unfinished cork tiles. The very natural finish has worn through in 2 years, so we are now redoing it with polyurethane, more durable, more hard wearing, which should last 10 years. So there are varying levels of finish you can get. There's a cork floor that I used in the restaurant, in Silo restaurant, which is much thicker, more heavy duty. They do feel different, when you touch them, it's not as natural a feel. I wanted in my house to be barefoot and have as natural a feel as possible. So you do lose that, depends what you put on top, but there's lots of different types. The cork on the outside is waterproof due to the lime adhesive that goes between the two layers is providing the waterproof barrier. And that's very important to know. Has to be applied really well and plenty of it. But the cork itself will soak up water and dry out again. But it's the adhesive in between that's doing that job. And then is anyone here from building control? No, okay then. The cornstarch has no fire treatment on. On the shelves, they are loose. You can, if something caught fire, you can pick them up and throw them out the window. So it's sort of, I thought cushion rules apply. On the ceiling, it's a ceiling installation. It is not affixed as a finish. So building control didn't say anything. We got away with it. If we'd had to apply a fire treatment, it would have dissolved, so wouldn't have been able to use it. But I was I said to the client, please install your fire extinguishers now, as soon as you open, and please, just be aware that is a material that could be flammable, and take precautions.
For the cork house?
So they were very wary of it. They were not sure of it as a material at all. They took a lot of persuading. Mostly about, it is fire treated cork, so it's not to do with the fire retardancy of the cork. It's had a treatment applied to the outer layer in order to meet class O, something like that. But they weren't sure it would be watertight, water resistant. They were worried about that, that it would be, whether it would be suitable for the climate. And we don't really know if it's suitable for the climate, but I'm testing it out for us, so we'll see.
Any other questions?
Thanks very much for the talk. It's very, very interesting. Natalie, just at the end of her talk, mentioned the importance of getting lots of people involved, doing things on a very big scale. And it's obvious that refurbishing a few homes doesn't solve the problem. We need to refurbish millions of homes. So I just wonder if you could comment on the availability of the materials that you're talking about, cork, wool, some of the others, ash from Scotland. Are all those available on massive scales that we're going to need them?
Not yet. They're currently available. They currently account for 1% of the insulation industry. You can't buy most of them in London. Most of the suppliers I use are outside of London. I've looked at Fallen and Feld that you've used, but I ended up not using it because we didn't have it was very pricey to use their materials. So we're not there yet. As a bit of an optimist, I'm hoping that sort of one to many, the more people talk about what they're doing, the more people get interested, the more excitement that can be generated, especially out of using. To me, it's just so exciting when I see wacky materials being used in projects. I just think that we've had the sort of years of chemicals, and I kind of see it as like, forgive me if anyone eats white sliced bread here, but I see it as white sliced bread versus sourdough. It's like you're going from something that's mass produced and quite artificial to something that's much more artisan. But even sourdough now is being sold, bread is being sold in all sorts of supermarkets. So it starts off as really niche, and it's quite sort of bohemian and a bit hippie-ish. But even I've even seen Dulux are now promoting low VOC paints, because whereas the sort of more out there suppliers have been doing it for years, eventually the bigger people start to catch up. And in places like France, they're much further ahead than us, and I don't know what the percentage is, but it's much higher, and I think it can be here. It just needs the demand to go up, and the more people find it exciting and see fantastic projects where these things are being done, then you can generate that kind of excitement. And for me now, design that doesn't involve thinking about these ideas, it can be beautiful, but if it's all made out of chemicals and non-environmental materials, it loses its edge for me. It needs to have that depth of being through that, that it's not just the form, it's the form and what it's made out of.
Quickly take chair's prerogative, and then I'll pass it over to you. I just wondered whether you were seeing a kind of a change in mainstream architects. Are architects beginning to get this? Is it coming through into education of young architects?
Yes, absolutely. I'm seeing tons of young architects all wanting to use mycelium. There's like a huge sort of abundance of them wanting to use mycelium. I'm really pleased to see you using it. It's not commercially available for insulation at the moment, but loads of students want to do that, and it is exciting to make projects with all kinds of things like ground up oranges and seaweed, and I've seen handles made out of salt, and it's just the innovation that comes around it is just so exciting. And to tap into that, it just brings a whole new level to design. So I think if people can get pulled up by the excitement of it, then it will start to become more and more the thing to do. And that's what you want. You want it to sort of become that there's a trend for it, that everyone wants to do that. Everyone wants to put in, they want to upgrade their kitchens and things, but now they might want to do them in a different way. through reuse a bit the way Josephine's been saying as well.
Thank you. So I'm a commercial interior design, so mainly work on offices and banks and stuff, so very different projects from what we've seen today. But as commercial designers, when we talk about sustainability, we talk about two core things. One is materials, focus on that, and then start with reuse as a focus. And both of those are challenging. So when you talk about something like cork for your own houses, okay, are the clients accepting it? Because one thing is supply chain is not easy. And when you talk about, Joséphine, reuse, how easy is it to tell your clients when they're spending, I don't know, 20,000 to renovate the bathroom, and you say, oh, you know, no, let's still use the same shower tray? Are they happy to do that? Because we obviously are facing, as commercial designers, and I'll just quickly say this. So what I've started doing is to reuse furniture in my clients' projects. We've started putting QR tags on the tables that we're reusing, but it says, I'm old, but I'm sexy. And it has worked on some projects. So we're trying different ways of educating the client as well as, you know, ourselves. So how do you face those things?
It's a very good question, because I don't actually always ask my client to keep their furniture or not update their kitchen. There's a feeling with your clients. If you feel they are up to it, you just ask them, would you like to keep your kitchen, or would you like to keep your bathroom? Or do you want to move the toilet from the loft bedroom where it's never used downstairs where it would be used, instead of buying a new one? But I don't ask all my clients these kind of questions, because I feel when they want to do it and when they don't. So obviously it also depends on the budget. When they've got a tight budget, it's much easier for me to push this kind of thoughts. But I'm doing a grade 2 listed in Richmond at the moment, and my client is spending a lot. However, because we've got a good relationship, I was able to tell him, would you like to keep some of the bathroom appliances? Because we could do it, you know, in the back bathrooms. Where they won't be used as much, and I think because it's his first project, he really wants to upgrade everything. But so I just challenged him, and I failed. So. But you know, it's also nice because sometimes you are quite surprised, and they are really embraced it. So yeah,
thank you.
There's just one more thing I wanted to add. Things are always popping into my email, but check out Enky, E-N-K-Y. I think they're a new startup, and I think they're renting furniture to commercial projects, which I think is a brilliant idea. So it's a sort of, you know, monthly thing, and then give it back when you're done. So there's lots of things like that popping up that are worth keeping an eye on. Yeah.
So I would like to ask a question, Natalie. We started out with the 40% in residential or buildings overall globally. And just today I heard on the news that the UK overall on carbon emission is only actually a contribution of 1%. So I've also recently, last week, heard how much of the impact we need to make in currently developing countries and emerging markets, and what are also opportunities. So how can or should we contribute to have a wider reach for making changes? And I mean, for maybe densely populated countries with lots of people, where maybe we could contribute with thought leadership or really finding viable solutions.
I think you've answered your own question.
How can we?
Well, I'm not working on that in particular myself. I'm just working on the area that I remember at one point in my life I lived in Jamaica, and when I got there, I was obviously it was the first time I lived in a third world country, and I felt this sort of incredible feeling that I really should be helping people. I wasn't in the position to be helping people, particularly I had a small child. But I had this feeling that I wanted, I want to do a lot here. And in the end, we can all do as much as we can do. We can work it within our circles, and then by speaking, we can make that go from one to many. But there's not that many of us who are like Greta Thunberg who can reach the whole world. If we can reach a number of people and hope that will have an influence on others, then and hope that you'll end up with a domino effect. So I don't think I can fully answer your question to reach all the other countries. I'm just working in my area for now. So, yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, one final quick question.
Your pyramid with materials at the base of the pyramid were very basic traditional materials, and as you went up to the top, I may have got this wrong, but was the newer materials were at the top? Did I get that right?
I'd have to look at it again, but there's sort of metals and steel and concrete are all towards the top. But you've got along the bottom, there's things like wood fibre, cork, all the more natural materials are down along the bottom of the pyramid. And sometimes I look at it and I think, some things are not quite where I expect them to be, but it's just a useful tool to sort of get a quick understanding about the most sustainable materials that you can make use of.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much to our speakers for really excellent talks, very different in their own ways, but also building on each other as well. So yeah, thank you all. So another round of applause for our speakers. And I also wanted to say thank you to Lisa for doing such great organisation work in pulling all of this together. And I wanted to mention that we've got one more talk a week today, and that is called Green Your Home Installations, Insulations and Affordable Fixes. And we've got David Farmer from the Energy House. It's a kind of a lab where they test different things out in Salford, quite famous, been on the radio, so we're really pleased to have got him, and along with Dermot Barnes and Stuart McElroy, who live locally as well, they'll be speaking too. And we've also got more open house tours at the weekend coming up as well. I think still a few places available if you'd like to book those. So thank you very much, and hopefully see you soon.